But this is my favorite slide in the whole deck. So pay attention to this, because if you can not do these things, then you won't fail in a case competition. This is how to ruin your case competition presentation. Okay, so number one is run out of time to do the work. This is the number one issue. And it might seem like we're dumbing things down for you. We're legitimately not. A lot of very smart people have gone through case competitions, and if given 75 hours to do the case competition, would have succeeded, but instead they were given 5 or 7 or 24. And because of that, they just completely come up with lots of great ideas, never come to an answer. So running out of time to do the work is the number one issue that we see. And we're going to talk about how you don't do that as we go through today in the 4 tips. Number 2 is run out of time to do the presentation. So like you could be a genius, have this amazing presentation, and the first person who starts to talk will talk for like 5 minutes of the 6 minutes that you're allowed to talk on the first slide of the deck, right? And so a lot of people, what they do is that they work up until the last minute and they never run through the presentation live. You have to do it live, you have to do it timed, and you always put the long-winded people last. And so I'm going to walk through some of that as we're going through it, but just know that and have everybody kind of run through a quick presentation early on in your test process, so you have a sense of who should go where and when. Number 3 way to ruin a case competition presentation: tell someone what all of their options are, but don't recommend anything, right? Here are 3 options that you have. You could grow your business, you could shrink your business, or your business could go bankrupt. Like, not a actually effective recommendation, right? You have to have a single hard focused recommendation. The 4th one is recommend too many things. So not just like a non-recommendation because you're just giving somebody a menu, but giving them like, these are the 5 top things that you should do. And I'll tell you what that does in a CEO. It helps them do absolutely nothing. We've made that mistake lots of times. We actually just kicked off a project on Monday this week for a company that we're working with. And our first pass with them 3 years ago was, hey, here are 3 things that you can do to fix your business. And this time they were like, our business is still a disaster. And we were like, great, here's the one thing. And sure enough, like they signed a, big contract with us to fix it because we came across as more clear, and they also felt like it was an easier decision to make. Just one yes or no, not yes or no. And out of the 5, what do we do first, and how do we resource it, and what else should we focus on? Okay. So if that resonates with any of you, times that you've messed up in the past, good. We're going to talk about now how to flip it around. Naman, any questions in the chat bar that I should answer here before I move on to the ways to fix it?
Not right now. Let's keep on rolling.
All right. You guys got to keep up. So make sure you put those questions in if you've got them. So key number one, spend the first 30 minutes of your time together developing and committing to a hypothesis of your answer. Okay. Because if you keep multiple options on the table, you will waste all of the rest of your time trying to decide between the options, and you will do 3 to 5 times the work. Okay. So here's what happens. You pick a hypothesis, you commit to it. And if, as you're doing the work, you discover that it was a dumb hypothesis, you scrap it and you use the work that you've already done to make just a single different recommendation. So the maximum amount of work that you do is 2 iterations. And this is a principle that we call the pyramid principle. We do corporate training on this all the time, but it's basically like, just pick one. If you think that they should grow by releasing a new product, that is your hypothesis, and everybody works on that thing. Okay. So don't leave options on the table past the first 30 minutes. What that also means is that later in the process, you're going to have to actually determine that, like before the last 5 minutes when you have to submit it, whether or not it was reasonable, like whether or not your hypothesis makes sense. But again, one of the biggest issues is people run out of time doing the work. They also don't make a recommendation. And so this fixes those 2 key things right away. So case competitions are about time management more than quality of ideas. In the final round, maybe you'll have 2 people who have slam bang ideas, but especially in rounds where you have like 2 rounds of competitions, the first round is just like people who can't finish the job, right? So to get through to the final round, this is an absolute must. If you don't start with a hypothesis, you don't know what you're trying to prove or disprove. So our argument is like, if you just go look at all the universe of data, guess what you'll find? The entire universe of data. So if you want to prove or disprove something, you actually have to come to the party and you have to decide what that's going to look like. And then number 3 here, right, determines what you think the key drivers are to solve the problem. So if you think that this pharmaceutical company should launch a new product, what do they have to believe to launch the new product? You get immediate direction into step number 2. Okay. Questions on this before we move on? Okay, great.
Let's keep on going.
So step number 2, right? Assign discrete work streams based on slides, not analysis. So a lot of people will be like, I'll take customers, right? And guess what they go do? They find data about customers and they run like a quick survey of 10 of their friends and they like look at all the data about all the customers in the world. They have no idea what they're writing for slides. Okay, so to make the work streams MECE, mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, where work streams don't interact, you guys need to spend the second 30 minutes of your presentation time deciding what your slides are going to say. Okay, and I'm going to walk you through a kind of optional framework at the end here that you can use for many case competitions. It's not going to be the only one that you would use, but I'll walk through exactly how you would do that based on the slides. The case competitions are going to give you a definition of how many slides you need to present. Usually it's somewhere between 6 and 10 slides, which usually means you have 1 to 2 slides per person. So one work stream is 1 to 2 slides in the final presentation. Again, you know, in that case, if you have to demonstrate that the market is big, that there are a large percentage of customers that want this product, that this is based on a key driver from a survey. Like if you write out that entire framework of the story, then going and finding the data for it becomes infinitely easier. And you don't spend all of your time finding data that's great that you won't use later. Okay, so right, you just figure out what slides you're going to write. We actually at Bain, when we did this, we would write the entire final presentation on the first day of the project, right? Entire final presentation. And we would assign out the slides. And like sometimes the data is unfindable and you have to go make a different slide, but you know you're swapping out slide 3 for a new slide 3, not customers something vague, right? You have to prove it in a different way, or you have to prove something different. And either of those becomes a lot easier. So knowing how many slides, what their names are going to be, what's actually going to be on the slide before you go and find the data, that's key number 2. And then making sure that each person gets a discrete work stream. That's a second part of that. Good. Questions? This all seems easy, and then you guys will just lose your minds when you're inside the case competition. That's part of the fun of it, you know? It's like, it's the same as a case interview. You're like, oh, I've got this down. I've read 10 case interviews, and you go in there and you're the dumbest person you've ever heard speak out loud, you know? So here you go. Key number 3 is categorize your analysis into the following categories, right? So here are our recommended categories if you're given nothing. So if you're given no direction, whether you are doing an analysis of a company's current state or an analysis of their future state, this framework works. And this is what we call our market study framework. We use this for case interviews as well. And we think it's the most effective to kind of solve a general problem, right? Because it covers 2 things. The first 3 pieces cover your revenue. The second 2 pieces cover your costs. So it kind of checks the box on profitability. It takes a look at the landscape of the market. It proves out specific actions that you should take. And so if you have no categories, these are your categories, right? How big is the market and is it growing? Those are the 2 key questions under market. Who is the customer, like specifically, right? Demographically, price point oriented, where do you find them? Like who is the customer and why do they buy from you? For the competitors, who are your key competitors and how are they beating you? For the company, what are our key resources and what do we need to build? And then for the product, how does our product shape up inside the market? Do we need to change pricing or packaging or something in the actual product? So those 5 things are your recommended categories, and you should just put at the top of them, not the word market, but actually what you're going to show on the slide, right? The market is growing. The market is declining. Like put what you think the key issue is. And what this does is, you know, at the bottom of the slide here, right? It's comprehensive. It helps you get to both internal and external factors, but it's not going to have you running off into the corners of the universe. Questions on this one? Okay, Sam, come on. First question, bring it.
I was wondering if these learnings can further be extended to, say, in class or in school projects that's around this idea of consulting.
You're not allowed to use them anywhere other than case competitions. No, I'm joking. Yeah, absolutely. Please, for the love of Pete, use these inside your other teamwork environments. Often teams that have a lot of friction don't have it because of personality, but rather because people disagree on a hypothesis or when you should come to the hypothesis. So if you can actually take a step upward and not fight about what you're deciding, but just make the decision to decide, it helps move teamwork forward across the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I'll tell you where we use this. So we use this for our team meetings. Like this is the actual thing that we do when we meet for our company offsite every year. And we like evaluate the numbers, right? We look at the market, we look at who our customers were and how that changed. We look at who our competitors are this year versus last year. We look at what our capabilities are, and then we look at what our products are. And we like knock products off and we add ones on. And we like, this is the actual structure that we use for our, 7-figure business, right? It's the actual structure that we use when we're consulting with other businesses. We use it to teach people in case competitions. I used it in business school and in undergrad. Like you can use it actually pretty much when you're working anywhere, which is why they want to see that you can use it inside the case competition, right? Because people are looking for people that are resonating with what they're talking about. Go ahead, Emma.
Well, I know you were just speaking to this, and instead of answering in the chat where people might miss it, I'll just repeat Matthew's question here. So how similar are these workflows or keys to a real world consulting project? Mm-hmm. I think you just spoke to it in our real world context, but can you just speak to it as far as like life at Bain?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And so this is basically what everybody wants to know about in almost all situations. So it was literally our structure for almost all decks. And we didn't call our final sections of the deck market. We called it a growing opportunity. And we called it like, the elite customer, like, or, competitors we talked about, right? The dog fight. Like we would kind of like make it a little bit more snazzy and fun when we finally got to a 2-hour presentation to really work on engaging people. And actually we would recommend that you maybe even deploy that inside your case interviews, that if you're going to use this structure, first of all, change the order of it. Second of all, just like rename some of the categories. But yeah, at Bain, we use basically this structure for almost every project. And like I said, we would write out the final presentation on day one. Our final presentation was not that presentation. We learned a lot as we did go look at the data. We had to swap out hypotheses when we were disproving it of our own hypotheses. But yeah, a lot of the times this would be exactly what we used. Okay, game on. Sam, what's up?
Sorry, I had just a quick question
Sure.
about the slides and how you divide the work between the team members.
Yeah.
So we decide the general idea of the slides that are going into the presentation, but then with the MECE, are we referring to the slides as well in terms of who gets what?
Yep.
And how they work on it?
So you guys either assign the work streams out and give people like a little bit of time, 15 minutes to name their slides and then come back and agree on that before you go away and work on it. Or like you can do that collaboratively, right? So but you could say, hey, Sam, you're one person, Naman's one person, and I'm one person. I could be like, look, I'll take customer, give me 15 minutes and I'll come back with the names of those slides and the kind of the general data that I'm planning to go look at. And then we could have like a kind of interim meeting about that. Or we could just decide together, hey, what do we think we should say about the customer? And then I can write that as the title of my slide. So you guys will figure out pretty quickly how your group dynamics are. If people are really quiet, you might want to let them go alone. If people are really loud, then you might want to let them go alone. If people are somewhere in between, you might want to, right? You know what I'm talking about. If people are somewhere in between and good at collaborating, then and only then I would probably like do that piece together.
And would it be safe to say that the obvious idea of like if someone is sort of an expert in one area, just let them go with that and do their best?
It depends. Yeah, sometimes people are experts and that's a real disaster because they know so much that they can't focus on whatever the key issue is. So I wouldn't always pick based on expertise. And hopefully, what you guys will recognize that the firms are looking for, and I'm sure your abilities support whether you have the confidence to know it or not, is that any of you could find the answers to any of these problems. If you are just focused on, again, right, what data do I need to prove out my hypothesis on this? But each one of the slides is basically a micro hypothesis, right? Yeah, so you have the macro hypothesis, like you should launch a new product. And then each of the slides is you should launch it because the market is big, the market is growing, customers want it, customers are willing to pay for it. And you kind of are like, filling out your argument with those mini hypotheses. And then that's what you're proving with the data.
So we're sort of creating a delicate balance between learning and producing our best work.
Yeah, again, I think that producing your best work isn't always based on expertise. It's usually based on your ability to focus. In fact,
Right.
One of the quotes that we have for our company is a quote, Naman, you can remember who it is, but the quote is "Focus is the new IQ." Right. So like sometimes people will have expertise, but not the ability to translate it. That's what we're looking for, is the combination of both.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Amazing. Great questions. Keep them coming. I'll move on to key 4 now. So your goal is to create one takeaway with specific actions, right? So again, the most convincing presentations are the clearest. And this is always shocking to us because sometimes there will be like a slam bang slide in the middle of a crappy overall presentation, and we aren't overwhelmed. But if somebody very deliberately walks through a fairly simple presentation that is highly convincing, it always scores the best. And we'll often reflect on this afterwards, but many people mistake complexity for convincing. And so it's not the same thing. Your identification has to be the biggest takeaway for your client, right? One major thing that they can do and 3 hows. So 1 what, 3 hows. And that's your, the what is the recommendation on the second to final slide. And the 3 hows these are the 3 things that you should do immediately next. They're not options. You do all 3 of them and you do them in this order: 1 first, 2 second, 3 third, right? And again, if you position yourself like that, if you basically write those slides at the beginning of your work stream, then you know what you're trying to prove out and you know that you've got them there. So you're not like forgetting to put them in at the end of the presentation. You leave your presentation with a takeaway. So every executive summary starts with the what. So the last slide, the second to last slide that says what you should do, you actually tell them on the first slide, this is what you should do, and we're going to prove it out. And then what you use for your sub bullets are actually the summaries of each category, right? So let's say you have 5 categories inside your presentation, you have 5 sub bullets on your executive summary. Our recommendation is that at the end, if you're able to get it down to kind of 3 arch issues, that's the best kind of executive summary. But I would rather have somebody walk me through the whole presentation in 1 to 2 minutes at the beginning on 1 slide and tell me what I'm going to do and why, and then go on and prove it with the data and the slides, versus have kind of like an odd lead in at the beginning without a clear answer. Okay, so those are our 4 tips. And I just want to remind y'all that the goal isn't just to win a case competition, right? The goal is to prepare yourself to land a consulting offer. The case competition often will come with money or opportunity. I mean, they're amazing. You should do them. We're big fans of them. But the real opportunity is the preparation that you get and the application of that preparation. So the couple things that I just want to highlight that we're really focused on here on looking for inside the presentations is that you have refined your core skills. We can tell when somebody had a hypothesis and stuck to it and proved it, right? We can tell whether that exists or not very clearly inside the presentation. For me, it takes like under 30 seconds to figure out whether somebody knows what they're talking about and is coming in as an advisor versus as a kind of like optionality person, right? Here's 7 options that you could do. Number 2, that you could do research. So doing research is one part finding answers, but part two is presenting those answers, extracting the insights from the data, that you cannot just tell me that there is data, but what the data says. And this is a big differentiator for all of us that are on the call. I saw a lot of y'all are advanced degree students or PhD students, right? This is like where they love you and hate you, because you're great at finding the data, but often terrible at telling me what it means. And so this is one of the key issues that you really want to focus on inside your case competition. Great storytelling is the fourth piece, right? Making sure that you have that story arc, and it's not meant to be recreating the wheel. In fact, two people with two different recommendations can use the exact same story arc and both convince me that they would be great recommendations. So it's a little less about the content and it's more about the form that you put the content in. And then finally, presenting under pressure, right? When I was in business school, we had to do a stock pitch. We worked on it for the entire semester. Our stock pitch was on Apple. And the first guy that went just totally freaked out. And he spent the first 4 minutes of a 6-minute presentation talking about the first bullet on his slide. Like, it was miserable. And so like everybody else was just like, here's my slide, here's the answer. Here's my slide, here's the answer. And basically like we were able to go through and finish the presentation, but like, I mean, it was super clear. The guy I think failed the class, or you can't really fail in business school because they just want you to become an alumni and take your money later. But really it was like this really, funny experience that we just were like, we walked out of the classroom, we thought, oh, we should have probably practiced, like not just running through the talking points, but actually under pressure as well. Second thing is, right, one of the goals is just add the case competition success to your resume. If you're going to put it on a resume, put it under education. Don't put it as a work experience, and don't put it somewhere else. So under education is the best place to put it. And then if you're not being educated currently, if you're not in a case competition for that reason, you're going to put it in your leadership section. If you are a PhD, JD, or MD graduating in 2023, you should apply to the bridge programs. And we'll just talk about that in a little bit for a second. And we would love to work with you guys. So you may have opened it since you got on the call, but you got an email for registering for this call. We've never done this before. We're going to try it today. Our PhDs, JDs, and MDs always tell us that they don't have enough money to do our courses. So we sent you guys a discount code, and it expires at the end of the hour. So make a quick decision whether you want to work with us or not. And you can always work with us. You just have to work with us for full price. So, so you got that discount code. It's in your email. If you didn't get it, just message Naman while you're on the call right now, and he'll send it over to you. But we're going to just talk a little bit about the bridge programs, and then we're going to talk about what we would recommend that you do to prepare. Then we'll take a bunch of questions. So the Bridge to BCG program, the deadline is in about 2 weeks, right? February 21st, 2022. So Bridge to BCG is coming up really, really quickly. For the Bain Advantage program, their deadline is March 6th. For McKinsey Insight, it's March 11th. If you guys haven't been around for a long time, these are all moving backward. Like they used to be in May for June and July programs. And now it feels like they're going to just start them a whole year in advance. But February and March are when those deadlines are coming. And for all of them, you'll need a resume. You'll often need a written statement. That's how most people fail this process, is by writing a boring, lack of point, or a completely like arbitrary, not related to what they're looking for kind of written statement. And so we have a package that I'll show you on the next page where you can swap out a cover letter for a review of that written statement. For LEK, they're anticipated to be like mid to late March, and for Clearview Healthcare Partners, both of those are usually later. Those are going to be around the same time, mid to late March. If you've got any specific questions about any of those, they're all called the Bridge program because Bridge to BCG was kind of the OG one, but we call them the Bridge programs collectively. They all do have different names. So don't call McKinsey's Bridge to McKinsey when you're talking to them. Ways to be socially awkward, right? So if you guys haven't, done anything with us before, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of a lot of our free content. We have a ton of free content available. We have a free mental math module that you can do. We have a free case course module. We have free content for the salaries for each of these organizations. So if you want something free, we have free all day long. For on-site boot camps, if you are a part of a school organization that wants us to come teach or teach virtually. We love doing that. It's one of our favorite things. And we have over 60 partners with schools that we do that. The greatest part about it is you don't pay anything except for your, tuition or your labor that you're giving them in exchange for your tuition. The school pays on your behalf. And so if it's you that has budget, you can talk to us. If it's not you, you can connect us to whoever has budget. And schools are very interested in doing these kind of boot camps. There are also self-study training materials. So one of the options that you'll see in just a second is like, you can just buy our packages to work through stuff on your own. And we have something for resumes and cover letters all the way through to case interviews, case competitions, and how to work on the job. So everything is kind of in that self-study training material package. And then we can also help you one-on-one. Which is usually what most people opt for. The highest number of people always opt for that, even though it's the most expensive option, because you don't get a lot of shots at something like this. So making the most of them is really great. So if you scan the QR code on the upper right-hand page of this slide, it'll take you to a digital version of all of these options. The top one, black belt, is what your discount code is good for. And it's kind of like it's our most popular thing. It's what people really want. And it includes resume and cover letter edits. Like I said, you can swap out your statement, your personal statement for that cover letter if you want to. 8 one-hour one-on-one Zoom case coaching sessions. You have an individualized program that is developed by a coach. We usually recommend people work with one coach alone, and focused online homework. So in between your sessions, we're like, congratulations, you should go do this online. So the black belt includes both the all access pass and the editing package below it. It kind of like encompasses everything and adds on top of it 8 hours of one-on-one training. The all access pass, if you want to save some money and DIY, my husband and I DIY some projects. It never ends well because we always put a hole through something, but there's a reason why you do it, and that reason makes sense. So we've got practice cases, over 500 practice cases with answers, lots of structure, math, brainstorming, market sizing, right? Drills, exhibit drills, video courses, industry primers, and really like lots more inside there. And so a lot of people buy that as a part of black belt, right? It's included in that black belt option, or they buy it to kind of work through it. You get lifetime access for all of this stuff. So if you want to use your 8 one-hour sessions over 1 year, you can. If you want to use it in 1 week, you can also do that. And the third one, the editing package, is $500, and that's just 2 rounds of edits on 1 resume. You guys, if you are advanced professional students, you have the worst resumes of all time for consulting, and they'll tell you bogus stuff like, you can just submit your resume that we don't want to read to us. You don't have to change anything. And that's not untrue. Like, they know how to read your resume. It just doesn't give you the best chance. And so we still recommend that you usually would modify your resume into a traditional MBA format, which is the same job that you're competing for. And there's a reason why the schools go and hire like 80 people from Columbia and Harvard and other places, because it's like very easy for them to translate their information. The same resumes that got them into the schools are the ones that the firms are looking for. And so you just want to mirror that inside your presentation. And if you want to apply for other jobs in corporate or strategy or consulting, then you can use the same resume for basically everything outside of your academia. So let's see here. We've got a question. Garish, did I say that right?
Yes, you're right.
You can tell me I'm wrong. I'm okay. I can handle it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You spelled it right. Thanks. I'm from University at Buffalo. I have 2 questions. Number 1, I am currently looking into your website. There are 2 options which are really fascinating. One is help me get a consulting interview and help me prepare for a consulting interview. Which of these packages has both of these included? That is number 1. And number 2, while you were explaining about the program, you mentioned a bridge with BCG, then McKinsey, and their deadlines there. Do these companies look at your college reputation as well, apart from your own resume and skills?
Yeah, great questions. Okay, so let me answer the first one first, and then I'll go to the second one. So If you want help getting a consulting interview, what that means is that you also need help with your interview application materials. So that includes the resume and the cover letter. And so that way we help you make sure that you're applying at the right time with the right networking options and with the right documents. If you already have an interview, so if you're already fast-tracked into one of the bridge programs or you already have an interview, then we don't need to help you with your resume because it doesn't matter at that point. We can just help you train for the interview. So that's really the differentiator between those two. The black belt that we have here at the top assumes that you need both. You need help with both, the getting into the interview and the interview process. And then let me go back to this one for the programs. So the firms do look at your undergrad, but they only, I mean, almost everybody who comes in has a great undergrad. So it's not usually a big differentiator. What they really look at is your extracurricular work, because people who have either extracurricular leadership work or, more importantly, extracurricular work experience that is somehow applicable to the commercial world, then that's really powerful. So I'll give you an example. We run a program that's called Strategy Sprint. It's $1,000. It's a week-long program, and it gives you a work experience. And we work with a lot of PhDs that do that program. The next one that we have is in May. You get coached by a MBB person. You work on an actual commercial project, and then you present at the end of the week. And that kind of experience is the kind of experience that they're looking for to help you differentiate yourself from other candidates. So, so something like a strategy sprint or a consulting project or, an application of your work that's commercially viable. Those are the kinds of things that really actually make the difference. Sometimes you guys have them as like a tiny bullet somewhere on your resume. So part of our editing process is to go treasure hunting, right? And find like the thing that they really want to hear about and amplify that in the document.
Makes sense. One last question.
Go ahead.
Do we need to have prior experience in consulting before coming to you?
No. Not at all. Yeah, we have people come from, my favorite one that I like to talk about was an elephant trainer. Like you can come from literally anywhere, but you have to be able to tell an interesting story, solve a problem, communicate effectively. So that's what our training is there to help you do. Take really any story and move it into what would be applicable into consulting.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hey, you guys are at a moment in this job market that you have never seen before and may never see again in your lifetime, where the consulting firms are literally like looking everywhere for talent. And they are so excited to find people. 5 years ago, hiring PhDs and like advanced degrees was not on the table. They could just throw a rock into a MBA program and they could get as many people as they wanted, and that was all that they needed to do. So why work harder if it's cheap and easy to go one place and find all the people that you need? Today, not true. MBAs want to go a bunch of different places. There aren't as many MBAs because a lot of people are still working, making bank in their jobs, so you're in a very unusual moment that presents a pretty awesome opportunity for you.
Let me just clarify one thing, just for folks who may not know on the call. So what the bridge programs are, they're 1 to 5 day kind of exclusive introductions to the firms. So you get a sense of what the culture is like, what life is like inside the firm, right? You get to connect with consultants. And if you're accepted to one of these programs, you're guaranteed a first round interview invite for full-time offers, or for full-time roles. And that interview happens later in the summer. So, if you apply now, put your best foot forward now, not only do you get the kind of 1 to 5 day experience in the spring that gives you a leg up as far as understanding the firms and their differences and what life is like, but you are guaranteed a first round interview for full-time roles happening later this year. And so it's an incredible opportunity, and it's only open to PhD, JD, MD candidates who are graduating either later this year or next year. So if you're in that window, you have nothing to lose by applying and trying to take advantage of these.
Yeah, the firms don't pay us anything to say it. Like, we actually just legitimately believe that these are really awesome opportunities. And If they're on site, which I think most of them are probably going to be off site this year, they involve like margaritas every day and stays at the Ritz-Carlton. So if they're on Zoom, you don't get that same experience, but you'll probably get like some kind of ridiculous gift basket that the firms will send you. Because what they want is they want people to go through these programs and they want to be done hiring by the end of the week, right? Like they want to kind of already know that you have everything that you need to succeed in the interview and the case interview process. So it puts you in the in club, basically. Good. More questions, Naman?
None I think we need to speak to verbally.
Okay. Yeah, Amy, go for it.
Sorry, I think I'm accidentally clapping and not raising my
What do
hand.
you want, Amy? What do you want?
Well, also, clap to this whole presentation. This has been great. I wanted to review key 4, the sub keys. I kind of missed the second sub key of 4. So the first is don't make it too complex.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one was to start with a recommendation.
Yeah, so the first slide should always be an executive summary where you tell them what the recommendation is, right? Like in this presentation, we are going to recommend that you enter this market and spend $5 million in the next year. Like just something very clear, very direct, very obvious so that they don't miss it, can't miss it. And then if you kind of like run out of time at the end, you've got it out there, right? And then the rest of the presentation is we're going to prove out to you why that's the right decision for your organization. Step number 2, identify the biggest takeaway for your clients is that like you don't just land the presentation on you should release this product and spend $5 million on it. You also say, and the first 3 things that you should do to get that done are X, Y, and Z. And so it's kind of like the final slide in any deck should be a next step slide. So one takeaway with specific follow-up actions.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. All right, Girish, go ahead.
I am sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions.
If they're good questions, I'll let you keep asking them.
Thanks. I am currently looking at get on the list section of your website.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything for full-time MBAs here. Can you please guide me through it?
Yeah. Are you a full-time MBA? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Naman, do you want to speak to that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Grish, if you join the list, you'll get an email afterwards where you can let us know who you are and the types of emails and resources you want to get. And then we'll make sure that we send you MBA specific resources. So just go ahead and complete the process there to join the list. And then you'll have the option later to let us know what exactly you need and what you want.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you. Great presentation.
Good. Okay, anybody have lingering questions about case competitions? We want to make sure that you really do feel like you know how to walk into your next case competition, knowing what you don't need to worry about and what you do need to worry about to make sure that it's successful. One thing that I haven't said maybe as clearly as I wanted to in the presentation is that honestly, it really doesn't matter what you choose as your answer. And I'll say it really, really doesn't matter because it does matter a little bit, but it's not the most material piece of your success. A great idea is like 5 to 10% of what they're looking for inside the case process. All right, is it Di or D?
Hi, this is D.
Hi, D.
So, yeah, I guess I'm the only one maybe. Is there any information about the experience to hire?
Yeah. So
with a PhD degree.
With a PhD? Yeah. So you can't go through these, the bridge programs. I'm going the wrong direction. Hold on, let me go find them. These programs are only for people in their penultimate year of the advanced degree process, because there kind of isn't a regular, hiring process for those guys. The other thing that you do when you go and have this like week of amazingness with BCG is you come back and you talk to all your friends on campus. And so they want more than just to hire you. They want you to evangelize inside your social network, which is your PhD or your MD program, for example. And so for you, you're going to go through the same process that you would always go through as an experienced hire, which is you're going to network. You need to find 1 to 2 people inside each firm that you can talk to that can say like, we would refer you for an interview. We think that you would be a great candidate. And if you want to like work with us to make sure that your resume speaks to that and your personal presentation speaks to that, you can work on that editing package. It's just a great place to get started. That includes some one-on-one time with us. It's 30 minutes of one-on-one time. And that time together will give you the ability to understand like what you need to do and where you need to go. So if that's what you want the most, help getting the interview, again, that's the best starting place, is the $500 package.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question. Feel free to ask a follow-up.
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Amy, go for it.
So I had participated in a hackathon one time, and one thing that they said that I kind of missed the mark on was coming up with a business model at the end and showing really how our answer or solution to a problem was going to make them money. Is that something we have to worry about as well here, like creating a business model?
The business model can be very simple. What they really want to know is that you have a way, like that you have a sense realistically of how many people would buy your product at what price. Right. And if there's a big cost to it, if it's not software or something else, then like at what point at what price point you would charge will pay back your expenses and leave you with a profit. So it does not have to be a complicated business model. It just needs to make them more money than you're recommending that they spend. I hope that helps to clarify it. But it does. If you tell me what the hackathon was about, I can kind of make it very specific to that example, but that's really what they're looking for, something very simplistically that's telling someone when you do this, it will be better for your business.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, great questions. Good, I'll give it about 2 more minutes in case people have questions. So again, you can raise your hand or you can pop a question into the chat. Naman's responding to a lot of y'all one-on-one. Yeah, Jane, go for it.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks. Lots of great information here. I did hear from a few of my friends that Bain is doing something that just started last year called Consulting Crew. And there's some like AD candidates that basically take interested AD candidates under their wing for a few months and kind of teach them the ins and outs of Bain. Does that actually increase your chances of maybe getting an interview, or do you know anything about that?
They're probably predisposed to expect you to get an interview if they're going to commit that kind of time and resource. And I would say it increases your chances because they're going to tell you if you're not, making up, if you're not kind of moving in the right direction. They also will usually provide you the referrals that help you almost guarantee to get an interview. So yes, across the board.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Naman, any themes that are coming out in the chat that you think we should mention for the good of the whole? I'll give everybody just one last minute to think about if they've got a question or not.
It's not a theme, but I think this is just an interesting conversation. So what's the difference to you between being hypothesis driven and being overconfident? I know I have a take on this that's quite strong, but I'd love to hear yours.
Good. Okay, awesome. So being hypothesis driven means that you say what the answer is that you think at the beginning, but not what the answer is. That's really the difference, because saying this is the answer is overconfident and foolish. Saying I think this is the answer, it helps you move in a direction and prove or disprove that hypothesis. So it's a difference between arrogance, which is like foolishly saying that you're right, and confidence, which is moving confidently in a direction. How is that for your circular argument, right?
I know it's good for you that we don't have enough time for me to poke holes in. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good, amazing. Okay, good. Well, final call for questions. Anybody have final questions on this? Fantastic. Well, we're so glad to be a resource for you. Please continue to come to our free programming. And if you are interested, you have about 13 minutes left to use that discount code. We'd love to work with you guys. If you've got any questions, you can reach out to us really at any time. Naman, I can see, put his private email into the chat bar. And we're responsive, we're helpful, we love what we do, and we're super proud of you guys for wanting to take really, for those of you especially that are PhDs, I saw a lot of those at the beginning. This is a leap. You moved your life in a whole direction and you're thinking about moving it in a different one now. And so we honor that. We know it's a challenge, but we also know that there are a lot of benefits on the other side of this that you wouldn't have or see inside your work inside academia. So, so we believe in that decision, and that's why we help you make the leap. So thanks again for your time. We're glad to have you here, and we'll see you guys on a future call. Thanks again.